10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. We have ignition.
And we have a liftoff.
It looks beautiful.
45 seconds into the flight.
Silver streak against the blue cloudless floor
Flight
of the
dynamics
sky.
says he looks good.
Heading toward orbit high over the
Mark,
Atlantic.
50 second mark.
Everything perfect.
Everything looks good. The distance now from the Cape about 4 miles. And Armstrong advises they have completed their burn. They are free of the second stage.
You ever done a science project, right? You had a science class. Of course you have. You've done a science project, right? And in a science project, you've had to use what we call the scientific method, right? You know what I'm talking about, the scientific method. Question, hypothesis, results, conclusion. That's how you figure out if something is true or not, right? You have a thing, you got to test it. You do a series of tests, you read the results, and it proves if your hypothesis was right or wrong and kind of shows you about the world around you. Simple. It's how all of our education works. You got to test something to prove it's true. You ever wonder where that came from? Well, it actually came from somewhere. It came from something called empiricism. And what empiricism basically says is all things that can be true have to be verified. And they have to be verified by means for which we can test it, right? So I have to be able to sense these things based on my 5 senses, whether it's sight, smell, taste, touch, or hearing. In other words, if I can touch it, then I can trust it, right? Makes sense. And it's a great way to look at the world. It's a great way to understand the universe around you if all that truly exists is just material. Atoms, fishies, quasars, cells, it's all real because I can measure it. Well, let me bake your noodle with this. How you know the test works? Well, you'd have to test it, right? Well, what do you test the test with? What test do you use to prove that the test you use actually works? How do you prove the scientific method works? With the scientific method? Wait. You're telling me I'm going to use the same test that I'm trying to prove whether the test, how do I know the test works in the first place? It's crazy, right? Now, I'm not telling you to, go back to school and burn all your science books and refuse to do your homework because it's ludicrous, it's logical fallacy. I'm not saying to do all that. Science is a beautiful thing. It's noble. And all it really is looking at the world around you and trying to make sense of it. This is a wonderful thing that we should all participate in. All I'm suggesting is maybe there is more to the world we know than what we can touch and what we can measure. That's all I'm challenging. And I think right now, actually, if me and you were to sit down and try to think of a number of things that we can't touch or measure, I think we can ramble off hundreds of things that if you've ever been in love, or if you've ever been dumped, ever been sad, you've ever been moved by things that are beautiful or by a painting or a song, then you understand that there are things that you can't necessarily measure. There are things that are beautiful, and beauty is something that there's no science test for, right? And it's not so much that that empiricism or the scientific method is flawed. It's just the wrong measuring stick, right? You're using the wrong measuring tool to understand something. It's like trying to count calories with a ruler. Let that sink in. Matter of fact, before I did music full time, I was a visual artist. That's what I went to school for. I went to school for illustration. And really, I believe the thing that makes a person a great visual artist is actually the same thing that makes them a good poet or a good musician. It's really their ability to observe, right? To see the world around you and to articulate it back to the listener or the watcher, right? Can they capture a moment? Can they capture an image and translate that into a medium that me and you can look at, right? And most of us marvel when we listen to a song or a painting. We marvel at these things, and not so much because it tells us about the artist's experience. You don't cry to a breakup song, not because of how the singer felt, but because somehow or another the singer was able to say how you felt. That's what makes the song resonate. How is this person that never met you know exactly how you feel? They were able to say how you felt. A painting was able to show you and transport you to a memory, into a place, and to conjure up feelings and emotions in your life, not in theirs. So if you've ever been amazed by a song or looked at a painting and just been in awe of the beauty, and somehow a photograph just kind of transplanted you into a memory and just reminded you of a time that was like, oh, it's so great, or oh, it's so terrible, whatever the case may be, it just invoked this memory or this emotion or this feeling, this connection to the other human beings around you. Ever experienced that? You know that those feelings are what you're supposed to feel. You're supposed to get a sense of awe, but that awe is not just for the painting itself, but for the painter. What an amazing photograph does, not only is the photograph beautiful, but it sings of the glory and the skill of the photographer, right? So a work of art creates a sense of awe, not only just for the art, but for the artist, right? But if empiricism is in fact the only truth, if all that is true is what we can measure, then you have to deny any of these feelings. You have to deny the very thing that makes us unique as a species, the thing that connects us and even gives us the ability to appreciate science and to contemplate the meaning of man. Because the shared experience, the ability to even appreciate science and beauty and contemplate the origins of man, come from things that we cannot measure or we cannot touch if the material world is all that it exists. But if you've ever nerded out at Nat Geo, if you've ever been blown away by a jellyfish, which really blows me away, like a jellyfish, I'm like, it's a floating clear glob with a nervous system. Like, I can't get my brain around that. That's what it is, and it blows me away, and I'm amazed by its maker. Now listen, I am by no means an astrophysicist. I am not a biochemist. I can't explain to you antimatter and dark matter. I don't know these things. All I'm saying is that I understand that there are things that the known universe cannot explain. There are things that are immeasurable based on rules that only measure material world. But if I'm going to be an honest and integral empiricist, if I'm going to be an intellectual like that, then really the best I can say is I don't know. What I mean by that is I can't make any conclusions about whether this is beautiful, whether it is designed, whether a design speaks of a designer, or beauty is real, because I have not searched the entirety of the universe. You have not looked under every rock in the entire space-time continuum to be able to decide definitively. You cannot apply the scientific method to whether this is designed or beauty exists or truth exists or there is a God, and you can't do that because you haven't looked at all of the universe. The best you can say is you don't know. You haven't researched it all. But you and I both know that beauty is real. Love is real. And you look at a sunset in a cumulonimbus cloud and you're like, that's beautiful. And that beauty is real. And that beauty had to come from somewhere. So, you are absolutely correct. I don't know there's a God or not a God because I have not searched the totality of the universe. If all that is true and exists is just the material world of the universe. If all that exists is just what is measurable by my senses, you're right. I can't know. Based on the rules of the scientific method, I can't taste, touch, feel, or smell, or hear it. I can't, you're right, I can't measure it. If all that exists is just what can be measured. But who says that's all that exists?